As I just mentioned to you, for those who are just now able to tune in, I am broadcasting from Chicago, and you said you love that city.
It's
I
one
do
of the
too,
best.
for very selfish reasons. I lived here for about 7 years, and it's a place that really helped me to better understand who and what I am. I met my now
Yeah.
wife here, and really started a new life for myself. So, what do you love about Chicago?
Well, I love the look of it. I think it's the handsomest city in America.
Yeah.
I love the architecture. I take that boat tour every time I come. I think the food scene is amazing and the people are great and there's so much art and culture and I just love everything about it, except the winter. Can't do it.
The winter's pretty rough. The roads are not great either, but the winter is the biggest reason to not
Yeah,
want to live in Chicago. It's ultimately what drove me away. I'm glad you mentioned the architecture tour too,
yeah.
because I know that a big part of what you're doing with ATX Television Fest this year is talking about working with your family and sharing meals with your family.
Yes,
And
yeah.
I just took my 9 and 7-year-old on the architecture tour for the first time, and I wasn't sure whether they would like it or not. They loved it. My daughter
Well,
was
first of all, it's a beautiful boat ride at the very least,
yeah.
right? And that's wonderful, and it's so pleasant. But then when you see, and I put this actually in the Chicago episode, I put some of this in there because I thought it's so important for us to preserve our architectural history. I know that sounds boring, but what defines where we live, if not the buildings in our town, right? That is the definition of our skyline is and what we look at when we're out. And Chicago has it the right way, and so many cities don't in America.
Yeah, Chicago gets the context thing right, which is obviously something they point out on the architecture tour, to where even if a building looks very different from the building next to it, there's some little nuance that pays
And there's
tribute.
space between the buildings.
Space between
There's
the buildings.
air around it.
Are you?
And there's art in the architecture.
Yes, there is. And it's a time capsule as well. The buildings that were built pre Great Depression, let's say, look very different and more extravagant than those buildings that started to get built after the Great Depression and World War II. And this country really going through some serious things. And you see evolution and apparently devolution with those sorts of structures as well. Now, you are a regular participant at ATX Television Fest. So I'm imagining that you've been pretty blown away by what has happened to Austin in the last 10 to 15 years now. I feel like that skyline looks different each and every year. What
Yeah.
is it that keeps you coming back to ATX TV Fest, Phil?
I love the television festival. It's because I grew up, as a TV junkie. My parents used to say, "What are you going to do? Get a job watching television?" And the truth is that when I started writing in television, I sent them at that time, I think it was 1989, the biggest TV that was made at the time, with a note on it that said, "Ha ha." So TV's in my blood. I'm a student of the form. And I love this festival that celebrates it. Who wouldn't? And now we're in where I can't say, I don't think there's ever been a golden age of TV, but we might be in it right now.
Like even comedies, the formula has been figured out now. And so it's up to the funniest people out there to figure out ways to still play with those lines, even though we
Yes.
know how jokes are supposed to be told on television. And there's
Right.
like many different ways to do that. And you've done a great job over that over
Thank
time of making people smile, laugh, and really
you.
go through the gamut of emotions when you really start watching a lot of the shows that you do.
I can't say that Everybody Loves Raymond would have fit into this in this time. The four camera live in front of a studio audience sitcom is kind of in a fallow period right now. I hope it comes back because when it works, it's wonderful. For my attraction to it was that it was the perfect in between theater and film. You write it, rehearse it, and present it to a live audience as a play, and then it has the permanence and even the flexibility through editing of film. So that's what makes it this perfect combo.
Do you think Raymond would work as a single camera show?
It might, but I don't think it would be as much fun to make. Single camera shows are making movies every week. They're a lot harder to do. Every time you switch camera angles, you have to relight. So there's a lot of time, and you're not getting the spontaneity that you get from doing it in front of a live audience. So you just don't. I also love the theatricality of it. I love that the audience is in on the thing being performed. What I mean is, a character says something and gets a laugh. This character on stage next to him has to hold for that laugh. They can't react exactly as they would in real life because people are laughing who are right off camera. And that's a wonderful thing that we're in on it. We're at a performance together and we're taking in the story together.
Very poetic. Now, if there's something you may like as much as television, it is not just eating, but it's sharing meals with people.
Well, I took everything I love about making a show and I turned it towards everything else I love in life, which is family, friends, food, travel, and laughs. So Somebody Feed Phil is a natural extension of my, I guess, personality, in the way that Larry David came out from behind the camera and you got to see the guy behind that show, for better or worse, except I would call my show Why Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I like that. And now the podcast does the same thing, Naked Lunch, where you're
Naked Lunch with David Wild and me. We eat lunch as we have for 30 years with our friends. And I would always say, why are we taping this? These are great stories we're hearing from all our friends who are, musicians and actors and work in various parts, comedians, various parts of show business. And I've always loved these lunches. And now we're taping them. That's all, because everyone else has a podcast. Why not me?
I'm a big fan of Greg Fitzsimmons. I love that episode. That episode spends a big chunk of time just talking about Brian Wilson and the most nervous he ever was going into a conversation. Do you have a most nervous that you've ever been in a conversation since you've talked to a lot of big time people in your years?
The person I'm most nervous around, and I've met them now a few times, is Bruce Springsteen. I can't put words together because he's my idol. He's the greatest living performer of our time. And I just don't know I almost don't want to meet him anymore, because he doesn't have room in his life for me to be his friend. And that's all I really want, is to be Bruce Springsteen's friend. But I know it's never really going to happen. So what can I do? Make chit chat, tell him how great he is again? It's ridiculous. The first time I met him, I was introduced to him by Rob Lowe, who I don't know very well, but I was downstairs at one of his concerts. This is 25 years ago. And I'm going to meet him. Someone I know is going to introduce him to me after the concert. And I'm nervous as hell. And I'm down there waiting for my friend, and Rob Lowe sees me, and we know each other a little bit. And he says, you haven't met Bruce yet? And I said, no. And he says, come here. And I go, no. It's, it's arranged in a way, that I'll be properly. And he just pulls me over to Bruce Springsteen and he goes, Bruce, this is my friend Phil. He created the show Everybody Loves Raymond. And Bruce Springsteen says, what's that?
You were getting
just turned to Rob.
Be really proud in that moment, because he's like, oh, cool, congratulations, I love that show. And he went the opposite.
Never heard of it. And I turned to Rob as if to say, thanks, Rob. This is exactly how I wanted this to go. This thing I've been dreaming about. And to his credit, Rob, explained it. And to his even greater credit, Bruce Springsteen goes, well, now I'm going to watch because I know the guy. And I just melted. And I said, it's okay, Bruce, you don't have to watch. I'll still buy your records.
Was this during the height of Raymond's popularity too?
Yes. Rob Lowe was like, well, he turned into Woody Allen. It's a very popular show. It's a number one on CBS. Yeah.
So
Hilarious.
you and Bruce do share a credit because you have both guest starred on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
That's right. But not in
Sadly,
the same episode. No.
not the same episode, but it
By the way, if I've ever been jealous of Larry David, that was the moment.
oh yeah, well Bruce, he did the classic Larry David thing with Bruce too, and you had your conflict with Larry where Larry didn't necessarily want to get together with you and he ends up wearing the MAGA hat. Brilliant storyline as Larry is prone to do.
But thank you for reminding me of this because now I actually do have something I could talk to Bruce about.
Oh, exactly. So
Right?
that's one of my all-time favorite shows, Curb Your Enthusiasm. What was it like working on that show like you were able to?
I have to tell you that Larry David is very Larry David.
Hmm.
That he is exactly like that. Like every word out of Larry's mouth in life could be an episode of that show. The first time I met him was at a party. I'm introduced to him, and he does not say hello. I say, hi, nice to meet you. And Larry David says, you think it's all right to throw gum in the fireplace? That's his hello.
The answer
He's
is no to that.
always thinking of these things that nobody else thinks about. And yet we all may think about them. And he taps into some, I don't know, deep subconscious thing that we think about but don't say. And yet he says it.
The answer is no to throwing gum in a fireplace also.
Well, right away, that's an episode, isn't it? You
It is.
throw gum in the fireplace. He throws gum in the fireplace. It plugs up the little gas line for the gas fireplace, right? And the house explodes.
Well, that's a very dark Curb Your Enthusiasm episode, but Larry
Well,
is,
no one has to be home.
that's fair. What do you think about phones at tables as somebody who treasures sharing meals with people like you do?
Wow, you're all over the place with your questions. I like it. Phones at the table? You
Yeah.
know, if a message comes in and you got to look at it, okay, but don't be there the whole time on your phone. That's rude. But I think it's such a part of us now. Listen, I'm an addict like everybody else. If my thing dinged right now in the middle of a nice interview with you, I would have to have a look at it because my whole world is here. It's my office. We travel with our office. The Terminator, by the way, is not Arnold Schwarzenegger coming back in time. It's here. This is the Terminator. We're already half human, half phone. This is going to kill us all. Mark my words.
So in the inevitable war between man and machine,
It's already winning.
Yeah.
We're already controlled by it.
Yeah. The
Aren't
sad
we?
thing is technology doesn't even have to fire a bullet. It just has to get us bickering about what color a dress is on social media.
Yes. And, look at it. Look, we spend our time in our own worlds of shit we believe, right?
Yeah.
We never have to take in the other side. My whole reason for being feels like I must get you to sit down and eat together. I did it in our Washington, D.C. episode, and it was not easy to get a Republican and a Democrat to sit and have lunch together with me. And I got two great guys. I got Brian Fitzpatrick, a Republican from Pennsylvania, and the great Pete Buttigieg, our Secretary of Transportation, who's a Democrat. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that they were on something already called the Bipartisanship Committee, which, have you heard of this? I never heard of it. I didn't know existed. They may be the only two guys. I don't know who else is on the committee. But when I asked them, what do you think the biggest problem in our country is today? They said bipartisanship, which makes total sense because nothing else will be solved. Gun control, climate, poverty, nothing will be solved without us working together. Bipartisanship. So my idea is put a buffet in Congress. Maybe they'll talk to each other while they're eating. Maybe they won't want to kill each other because the food is good. It's not that crazy.
Food is one of the keys to bringing us together. And by the way, civic debate is something that used to be much more common decades ago. It's only seemingly in the last 10 to 15 years that started to fall by the wayside, but it does seem like level-headed people are starting to come to the conclusion that sort of thing needs to happen again, that we can talk about our differences without it devolving into name calling. And
You
maybe
know that the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence even was not written in Independence Hall in Philadelphia. It was mostly written over drinks and food in the bar restaurant around the corner that's still there
Hmm,
and still operational.
I didn't
Yes, because the first thing we are as human beings, what do human beings do? One of the things we do, no matter where you live, you got to eat. So it humanizes us. It makes it relatable. When I travel, I can be with someone who doesn't speak a word of English, right? But I can make myself understood by going, oh, yes, good, yes, right? And we're communicating on a level, on the most basic human level. Food, good.
Yep.
And then if we can share a smile or a laugh, sometimes over that food or the way how much we like it or don't like it, now we're friends. So I always say food is the great connector, and then laughs are the cement.
Great saying. Boy, you're full of those great sayings, t-shirt sayings. I feel like you could have a t-shirt company in a different life, Phil.
Well, I have my books, right? I have the cookbook, the Somebody Feed Phil the book,
That's
and I
right.
have a kids book with my daughter, and I have a new. I'm working on it right now. In fact, I took a break to talk to you for the second cookbook.
Oh, really? Is there a general theme to that one?
It's not confined to the show. It's all my favorite dishes in the world that I've found over the years, including stuff from friends and family.
Is there a dish that you find yourself most surprised that you love so much all these years later?
Hmm, it's a good question. I'm always surprised when anything is so fantastic, that I can't stop thinking about, like new favorites that I find. I just happen to be working on this page right now. Shola Olanloyo is his name. He's a Nigerian chef. He lives in Philadelphia. And we filmed with him. And he took me to his little townhouse in Philly. And he has a backyard that's maybe 15 feet by 15 feet. That's it. But he's got like 3 grills going back there, including a super hot oven. And he made steak in this thing, and he made squid. And it was so hot that we could film the entire cooking process in real time. That's how fast it was.
Wow.
Like he puts it in, shuts it, talks to me for 30 seconds, opens it. That squid is done. Drizzles it with olive oil, a little sea salt. Boom, one of the most delicious things you ever ate. So yes, that's a surprise, right? Very happy surprise. Listen, I've had some bad surprises too, but they're not in the book.
So are there dishes or places that you make sure you have to visit when you come to Austin?
Yes, Leroy and Lewis. I think it's
Like
one of the best
barbecue.
barbecue places in the world. I
Yeah.
really do. It's in our Austin episode. I've been to Franklin a number of times. It's amazing, fantastic. I think Leroy and Lewis and Interstellar and a few of the other places are equally good. They're a little different. Maybe they have their specialties, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody gives you Leroy and Lewis, a platter of Leroy and Lewis and everything they make, you're going to complain that it's not Franklin? No, you're going to be too happy eating. I also love Suerte, and I don't miss that when I come. You know what my first stop is on every trip to Austin? Torchy's.
Okay.
I
Big,
love it.
big fan of the queso.
Yeah, and everything else. I love their tacos. I think they're great. Their tortillas are great, and the stuff inside and all their sauce. I think it's one of the best chains anywhere. And that's not to say I don't love, Nixta, which is a gourmet version. That's the real stuff, and I'll be going there this weekend.
Este is another really good spot. It's
Yeah.
seafood oriented.
Yes.
So
Yes.
many
That's
great
from
options.
that's from Suerte, right? That from that chef.
Yes, it is. And so Austin is one of those places in the last 20 years. You've seen a huge evolution in the food scene. There were decent restaurants at the turn of the century, but Austin has
Yes.
turned into a culinary destination in the last decade plus.
Yes, you're right. We had no trouble filming a whole episode in Austin. It's fantastic, and it's not just about the barbecue. You have a lot of other great food now too. And I do want them to slow down on the building willy-nilly. You know, there's a problem I find in American cities that are booming that I'm from New York and I see it in New York. Stop. These are soulless buildings just going up, crowding the skyline, and it has no character. Even in Chicago, you know, when they build a modern building, you know that they have character. That one that comes down to a point like the pencil,
Yeah.
spectacular, right?
Very unique. And as we learned on the architecture tour, you have to have 30 feet between you and the sidewalk below because they want to make sure to continue to foster the river walk.
Yes, I mean, this is what the great cities of the world have in common. Respect for the character of the place. Look at when you walk down the street in Paris, not all of Paris, because if you go to the outskirts of Paris now, it looks like anywhere else. But central Paris, the grid plan for central Paris and those buildings, you walk down the street and you're knocked out by how spectacular it is.
There's one other thing that you're doing for ATX TV Fest this year, and it's the closing night event
Yes.
that is a tribute to the great Norman Lear. You're going
Yes.
to take part in a script reading from mods and then talk about Norman afterwards. Did you have the pleasure of garnering any sort of friendship or relationship with Norman prior to his passing?
Oh my God, yeah. When I was in the middle of season 1 on Everybody Loves Raymond, my phone rang in the writer's room. It was Norman Lear. And I answered the phone. Hello? And he goes, I hear we're fans of each other. And I said, I don't know about you, but I'm a big fan of yours. You know, my whole life was influenced by Norman Lear and watching All in the Family. And he said, we should have lunch. Can you meet me at Pinot tomorrow on Ventura Boulevard? And if it's okay with you, there's someone else here who likes you, who wants to come along. I said, bring whoever you want, Norman Lear. And I go to Pinot the next day, and Norman is sitting there with Carl Reiner. Yes. And I dropped dead. Yes. And I couldn't believe how nice they were to me. They didn't have to be nice. I was some kid, but they were so sweet. They felt like my old Jewish uncles, and they treated me like family. And then we became family, and we became very close friends.
Yeah, you were a Mel Brooks appearance away from your world coming to an end that day.
Hey. I got to know him through them as well. I got to have lunches with these guys, my heroes. Not just Norman, Carl, Larry Gelbart, who wrote MASH and a lot of great things. He was super funny. Not enough people know who Larry Gelbart is. He wrote Tootsie. He was funny thing happened on the way to the farm. MASH, the series, obviously, but him, Mel Brooks. Neil Simon would come to lunch. I mean, I started orchestrating these lunches so I could hang out with them.
All right, last question now, Phil. What do you love about sharing meals with people?
It's the great connector. It's like I said, it's so fun. It's my entire social life, really. If you and I are going to be friends, we're going to have to eat. That's just it. I mean, that's where the talking gets done. I wouldn't have a meeting with you unless it was, I guess, a hard business meeting, but I'm not going to meet you socially unless we're eating or drinking something. That's just how the world works in my world.
Sure.
And we have focus. We're not on our phones. We're doing this thing that's enjoyable, hopefully. And we're talking and we're getting the stories. It's all about connecting to other human beings. Food is the great connector, and then laughs are the cement.
Yes, they are. And you've been proving that for a long time. And I do appreciate that as well as the time today. He is Phil Rosenthal. Check him out at the ATX TV Festival this weekend. Go to atxfestival.com to find out more info, to snag tickets.
Saturday morning, not to interrupt you, but Saturday morning is a panel with me about Somebody Feed Phil. And my special guests are my kids, Ben and Lily, who are in the show with me quite frequently. And my nemesis is going to be there. My brother, the producer of the show, Richard.
And that's Saturday morning. That event with Norman Lear is on Saturday night. Phil, thank you so much for joining me once again. It's been a real pleasure, man.
Thank you, my friend. I'll see you soon.
Watching on YouTube right now, I greatly appreciate you subscribing to the Books on Pod channel. Click thumbs up if you like the episode. And thanks to Gentleman Jesus for the intro and outro music. Hear more of his work at gentlemanjesus.com. Thanks to you for hanging out. For more of the show and to connect on social media, go to booksonpod.com. Talk to you next time on Books on Pod.